Welcome to Wild Love Story, the channel where the extraordinary becomes personal, and the personal becomes unforgettable. Here, we bring you stories that unravel the complexities of love, tales that inspire, break hearts, and remind us all how deeply connected we are by our emotions. If you've ever had a relationship that defined your life, whether it brought you joy, taught you lessons, or tested your limits, we want to hear your story. Share it in the comments below and be part of this incredible community. Also, don't forget to click the subscribe button now if you are new to this channel and to turn on the notification button. Now, settle in, because today's story is one you'll never forget. My name is Martin, and for nearly 2 decades, I thought I had everything I ever wanted. I was married to Jenny, the woman I loved and believed I knew completely. Together, we raised 2 incredible children, Emma and David. We celebrated birthdays, holidays, and quiet Sundays that filled our home with warmth and laughter. Our family was the foundation of my life, and I couldn't imagine anything more fulfilling. 18 years of marriage had built what felt like an unshakable bond. Jenny was not just my wife but my partner in every sense. Together, we shared dreams, supported each other through challenges, and created countless memories. From the outside, our life appeared whole, complete, and full of promise. There were moments that defined us as a family: first steps, school plays, late-night talks, and quiet moments spent watching our children grow. I believe those moments were the essence of who we were, a testament to the love and trust we had built over the years. It was the kind of life I thought could weather anything. Yet, even in the best of times, life has its complications. Jenny's career had grown increasingly demanding, and I often found myself taking on more at home to keep everything running smoothly. I didn't mind. I wanted to support her ambitions just as she had supported mine. There was never a question in my mind about the strength of our partnership. Our lives moved forward in a rhythm that felt natural: busy days, family dinners, and the occasional weekend getaway to escape the chaos. It was the kind of life I was proud of, one that I thought would carry us through anything life might throw our way. But every life has its layers, and sometimes those layers can reveal things you're not prepared to face. For years, I believed Jenny and I had a strong foundation. We had been through so much together, and our relationship had always felt secure. But about a year ago, I started to notice changes, small, almost unnoticeable at first. Jenny became distant in ways that were hard to define. Our conversations, once filled with laughter and shared dreams, grew shorter, more functional, and less warm. It was as if an invisible wall had begun to form between us. She always had a demanding job, and I tried to be understanding. I told myself that stress can weigh heavily on anyone. But her demeanor began to shift in ways I couldn't ignore. Jenny was more guarded, quick to anger over things that never used to bother her. Little arguments about nothing at all started to pop up. She'd get defensive when I asked simple questions, like how her day was or whether she'd like to plan a family outing over the weekend. I wanted to believe it was just a rough patch, something we could work through together. I never imagined that those changes could mean something more. But then, the late-night errands started. At first, they were rare, quick trips to the store because she forgot something for tomorrow. I didn't think much of it. We all forget things, right? But over time, they became more frequent, and her explanations felt rehearsed, almost too perfect. A forgotten ingredient for dinner. A late-night run to pick up something for work. It always sounded reasonable, but deep down, I started to question. There was one night in particular that I can't forget. It was past 10 p.m., and Jenny told me she needed to pick up a file she had left at the office. She kissed me on the cheek, said she wouldn't be long, and drove off. But when I checked the clock hours later, she still wasn't home. I called her, and she didn't pick up. My heart started racing. When she finally walked through the door, she brushed off my concern with a quick apology and a story about how she had run into a coworker and lost track of time. I wanted to believe her, I really did. But that gnawing feeling in the back of my mind wouldn't go away. Something about her explanation felt off. It wasn't just the words she said, it was the way she said them. Her tone, her body language, everything felt wrong. The days turned into weeks, and the tension between us only grew. I tried to push my doubts aside, telling myself I was overthinking things. But as time went on, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more going on. The late-night trips continued, and her phone became a constant presence, always in her hand, always locked. Whenever it buzzed with a notification, she'd glance at it and quickly tuck it away, saying it was just work. I started to notice patterns. She would be more irritable on certain days, more distracted. She'd cancel plans at the last minute, claiming she was too tired or had something urgent to handle. And then there were the excuses, small things that didn't add up. Little inconsistencies that left me wondering if I was just imagining things, or if I was finally seeing the truth. I didn't want to be the kind of person who doubted his spouse. I wanted to trust her, to give her the benefit of the doubt. But the more I tried to ignore the signs, the louder they became. It was like trying to silence an alarm that only I could hear. One evening, as I sat in the living room trying to push my thoughts aside, Emma came to me. I could tell something was wrong before she even spoke. Her face was pale, her movements hesitant, and her voice was trembling in a way I'd never heard before. She stood in front of me, wringing her hands, her words barely above a whisper. "Dad," she said, "I don't know how to tell you this, but I think something is going on with Mom." I froze. For a moment, I couldn't speak. My mind raced, grasping at any explanation, any excuse that could make sense of what she was saying. I asked her what she meant, my voice unsteady, trying to sound calm even as my heart pounded in my chest. She told me she had seen something on Jenny's phone, messages, she said, that didn't feel right. At first, I didn't want to believe her. I asked her if she was sure, if she might have misunderstood. But the look in her eyes told me everything. She was scared. Scared to tell me, scared of what it might mean. And deep down, I think I already knew she was telling the truth. She showed me what she had seen, messages from a man named Chris. They weren't casual. These were messages filled with affection, with longing. Messages that no married woman should be exchanging with another man. My hands started to tremble as I read them, each word feeling like a dagger. I could barely breathe. I didn't know what to say. My first instinct was to defend Jenny, to tell Emma that there had to be an explanation. But the evidence was there, right in front of me. There was no misunderstanding, no innocent excuse that could explain what I was reading. Emma was quiet, watching me carefully. I could see the pain in her eyes, the uncertainty, and the guilt. She kept apologizing, saying she didn't know if she should have told me, but she couldn't keep it to herself anymore. I reassured her that she had done the right thing, even though it felt like my entire world was collapsing. I told Emma to go to her room, to try to get some rest. I needed time to think, to process what I had just learned. As she left, I sat there in the silence, staring at the messages on her phone. My mind was racing, replaying every moment of the past year. Every late-night trip, every guarded look, every excuse, it all started to fit together in ways I didn't want to accept. I wanted to believe that there was some explanation, some way this wasn't what it looked like. But the longer I sat there, the harder it became to ignore the truth. The life I thought I had, the marriage I thought I knew, it was slipping away, piece by piece. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I couldn't sleep. My mind wouldn't stop racing. The thought of those messages, what they implied, what they meant, was like a weight pressing down on my chest. I sat there in the dark, staring at her phone, torn between the need to know and the fear of what I might find. My heart was pounding as I opened her messages. At first, I wasn't sure what I was looking for. But then I saw it, a name I didn't recognize, buried in a string of texts. I clicked on the thread, and that's when the truth came crashing down. The messages weren't just casual conversations. They were intimate, detailed, and impossible to misinterpret. They talked about meeting up, about times they'd already spent together, about feelings I thought only she and I shared. Each word felt like a dagger, cutting deeper into the trust one had built over nearly 2 decades. There were photos, too. Pictures of them together, smiling, laughing, standing closer than they should. And then there were the plans. Dates and locations written plainly in their messages, moments I had no idea were happening while I was at home with our kids, believing she was at work or running errands. As I pieced it all together, I felt like I couldn't breathe. The woman I had loved, the mother of my children, had been living a life I knew nothing about. Every late-night trip, every cancelled plan, every excuse, it was all right there, laid out in front of me. I sat there for what felt like hours, scrolling through the messages, rereading them as if the words would change. I kept hoping I was wrong, that there was some explanation I hadn't considered. But the evidence was undeniable. There was no coming back from this. The most painful part wasn't just the betrayal, it was the realization that this wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a moment of weakness. It was deliberate. Planned. And it had been going on for months, maybe even longer. As I put the phone back on the nightstand, my hands were shaking. I didn't know what to do or how to confront her. All I knew was that my world had changed forever, and there was no way to undo what I had just uncovered. I spent the rest of the night sitting in the living room, staring at nothing, replaying every moment of our marriage in my head. Every memory felt tainted now, every happy moment overshadowed by the lies I had just uncovered. The question wasn't if I would confront her, it was how. The morning came too quickly. My head was pounding, and my chest felt heavy. But I knew I couldn't wait any longer. I had to confront her. I didn't rehearse what I was going to say, I couldn't. There was no way to prepare for a moment like this. As she walked into the kitchen, everything about her seemed normal, routine. She didn't know that the world she thought she had hidden so well was about to collapse. I stood in the doorway, gripping the phone in my hand. My heart was racing, but I couldn't let that stop me. I had to know the truth from her own lips. I walked up to her and placed the phone on the counter. "Is there something you need to tell me?" I asked, my voice steady but firm. She froze. I'll never forget the look on her face, shock, fear, guilt, all of it written so clearly in her eyes. For a moment, she didn't say anything. The silence hung between us, heavy and suffocating. Then, she stammered, "I don't know what you're talking about." But her voice was shaky, and her eyes darted away from mine. She knew she was caught. I didn't say another word. I let the messages speak for themselves. She unlocked the phone, and as she scrolled through the texts, her composure crumbled. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she looked at me, pleading. "It's not what it looks like," she said. But we both knew that wasn't true. What followed was chaos. She cried, she yelled, she tried to explain, but none of it made sense. She said it was a mistake, that it didn't mean anything, that it was over. But every word she said felt hollow, like she was grasping at straws to save herself. I asked her how long it had been going on. She hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything. Finally, she admitted it had been months. Months of lies, months of sneaking around, months of pretending everything was fine while she betrayed the life we had built together. She begged me not to tell the kids. She said they didn't need to know, that it would only hurt them. But it was too late. Emma already knew, and I wasn't going to keep this from David either. They deserved the truth, no matter how painful it was. I told her I needed space, that I couldn't even look at her right now. She cried harder, calling after me, but I didn't turn back. I went to the living room and sat down, my head in my hands. The weight of everything was crushing, but I knew there was no going back. For hours, I stayed there, trying to process everything. I thought about our kids, about what this would mean for them, about how our lives would never be the same. I knew I had to make a decision, and I knew it wouldn't be an easy one. I knew this was the end of our marriage. The trust was gone, shattered into pieces I couldn't put back together. I had always believed that our family would weather anything, but this was different. There was no coming back from what I had discovered. The following week, I filed for divorce. It was the hardest decision I had ever made, but it was also the only choice I had. I couldn't stay in a marriage built on lies. My kids deserved better, and so did I. But what I didn't anticipate was just how difficult the next steps would be. When Jenny found out, she broke down. She begged me to reconsider, saying we could go to counseling, that she would do anything to fix what she had done. But her words felt empty. They were the same words she had used when I first confronted her, and they hadn't changed the truth. This wasn't something that could be fixed with apologies. When begging didn't work, she turned to anger. She accused me of giving up, of ruining our family. She said I was selfish, that I wasn't thinking about the kids. Her words were meant to hurt, and they did, but I stood my ground. I wasn't the one who had betrayed our family. That responsibility was hers alone. She threatened to take everything from me, the house, the car, even custody of the kids. She said she would fight me in court and make sure I walked away with nothing. But what she didn't know was that I had already started preparing for this. I had spent the week gathering evidence, not just for my own peace of mind but to protect my children. With Emma's help, I compiled everything, every text, every photo, every piece of proof that showed the truth of what had happened. I didn't want to drag my kids into this any more than they already were, but I knew that I couldn't go into this unprepared. Jenny had already lied to me for months. I couldn't trust her to play fair now. The legal process was grueling. Jenny contested everything, from the division of assets to custody of the kids. She painted herself as the victim, claiming I was overreacting, that I was the one tearing the family apart. But the evidence spoke louder than her words. When the time came to present the evidence in court, it was like reliving the betrayal all over again. Seeing the texts, the photos, the dates, it was a painful reminder of everything I had lost. But it was also a moment of clarity. The truth was out in the open now, and there was no denying it. The court ruled in my favor. I was granted primary custody of the kids, and I was able to keep our family home. The judge saw through Jenny's attempts to manipulate the situation, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. It wasn't just a legal victory, it was a step toward rebuilding our lives. I knew there was still a long road ahead, but for the first time, I felt like we had a chance to move forward. Looking back, I realized how much strength it took to make that decision, to take action even when it felt like the world was falling apart. It wasn't just about ending a marriage, it was about protecting my family, about choosing honesty and integrity over lies and betrayal. During the divorce proceedings, I presented the evidence of her affair. It was the culmination of weeks of preparation, of gathering every message, every photo, every detail that proved the depth of her betrayal. As the evidence was laid out in court, the weight of her actions became undeniable. The court was not kind to her when they saw the extent of her deceit. The messages, the photos, the lies, it painted a picture she couldn't explain away. She tried to deny it at first, claiming the texts were misinterpreted or taken out of context. But the evidence was overwhelming, and the truth spoke for itself. With the support of my daughter, I proved her actions in court. Emma, who had been brave enough to come forward, stood by me every step of the way. She knew how important it was to fight for the truth, not just for me, but for our family. When the judge delivered the final ruling, it felt like justice was finally served. The ruling was clear. I was granted full custody of the kids and ownership of the family home. Jenny's attempts to manipulate the situation had backfired, and her lies had only strengthened my case. It was a victory, but more than that, it was a moment of clarity, a reminder that integrity and truth can prevail, even in the face of betrayal. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. The weight of the betrayal, the lies, the uncertainty, it was all lifted. But this wasn't just about winning in court. It was about reclaiming our lives, about showing my kids that even in the darkest times, we have the power to stand up for ourselves and fight for what's right. Jenny didn't make it easy. Even after the ruling, she tried to sow seeds of doubt, to make me feel guilty for the choices I had made. But her words no longer had power over me. The evidence, the truth, it had set me free from the web of lies she had spun. She moved out of the house shortly after the ruling. Watching her leave was bittersweet. This was the woman I had loved for nearly 2 decades, the mother of my children. But it was also the woman who had betrayed everything we had built together. Letting go wasn't easy, but it was necessary. As the days turned into weeks, I began to focus on what truly mattered, my kids. Emma and David were my anchors, my reason to keep going. We talked openly about what had happened, about the changes in our lives. It wasn't easy, but together, we began to heal. I channeled my energy into creating a stable, loving home for them. I wanted them to know that no matter what had happened, they were loved, they were safe, and we would get through this together. And slowly, day by day, we did. Looking back, I don't regret taking the steps I did. It wasn't just about exposing the truth or seeking justice, it was about protecting what mattered most. And in the process, I found a strength within myself that I didn't know existed. My life didn't end when my marriage did, it began anew. Though the journey was painful, it taught me lessons I'll carry forever. I learned to listen to the people who love me and to trust my instincts. There were so many moments when I doubted myself, when I questioned whether I was doing the right thing. But through it all, I realized the importance of trusting my inner voice. My daughter's bravery changed everything. It reminded me of the value of honesty, even when the truth is hard to hear. She could have stayed silent, but instead, she chose to protect our family. That single act of courage set the course for the life we now have. My son, David, showed me resilience in ways I hadn't expected. He struggled to process the changes at first, but he found ways to channel his feelings, through his art, his music, and his quiet moments of reflection. Watching him grow stronger reminded me that healing is a process, not an instant fix. Rebuilding our lives wasn't easy. There were days when the weight of it all felt too heavy to bear. But we leaned on each other, and we learned to find joy in the little things. A shared meal, a movie night, a walk in the park, these moments became the foundation of our new beginning. I also learned to forgive, not for Jenny's sake, but for my own. Carrying anger and resentment would have only weighed me down. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or excusing what happened, it means choosing to let go of the power that pain has over you. Forgiving her wasn't easy. It took time, and it took a lot of reflection. But in the end, I realized that holding on to that anger wasn't worth it. I needed to focus on the future, on building a life that my kids and I could be proud of. This journey taught me to value the people who stood by me, the friends and family who offered their support in ways big and small. It reminded me that even in the darkest times, there is light to be found in the love of those who truly care. Most importantly, I learned to believe in myself again. For so long, I had let doubt and fear control me. But through this experience, I rediscovered my strength, my resilience, and my ability to create a better life for myself and my children. My kids and I are rebuilding our lives, and while it's not the life I envisioned, I'm proud of the strength we've found together. Every day brings new challenges, but it also brings new opportunities, new moments to grow, to learn, and to love. In the end, this journey wasn't just about loss, it was about finding something greater. It was about realizing that no matter how broken things may seem, there is always a way to rebuild, to heal, and to move forward. And for that, I am forever grateful. Thank you for joining me on this journey. It hasn't been an easy one to share, but I hope it resonates with those who might be going through something similar. Life can be unpredictable, and relationships can test us in ways we never imagined. But every challenge brings an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to find strength you didn't know you had. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support means the world to us here at Wild Love Story, and it helps us continue to share stories that inspire, heal, and remind us of the power of love and resilience. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever experienced a relationship that challenged you or taught you something profound? Share your story, it might just inspire someone else. And remember, every relationship teaches us something about ourselves, whether it's about forgiveness, courage, or the importance of standing up for what matters. These lessons are what shape us, what make us stronger, and what give us the tools to move forward. See you in the next Wild Love Story. Until then, take care of yourselves, cherish the people who matter, and remember, you're never alone in your journey.